Beruchim ha'aboim, welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chav Ches Amud Beis, the last two lines. The Gemara had previously told us that although Anshe Knesset HaGedolah instituted Shmona Esrei, 18 brachos, by the time of Ram Gamliel there was an increase in apikorsim, who are being mitzar Klal Yisrael and trying to then take them away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So they instituted an additional bracha, the 19th bracha of Elam Al Shinim, in order to then daven HaKadosh Baruch Hu should do away and cause them destruction. Says our Gemara the following Ma'aseh, Tonu Rabbanon, Shimon HaPekuli Histir Shmoina Asrei Brachos Lifnei Ram Gamliel Al HaSeider B'Yavne. Shimon HaPekuli, he was mesader the brachos, either they were forgotten over the course of time, exactly the Seder HaDvarim. He was mesader these brachos nonetheless in front of Rabbi Gamliel in Yavne. Omar lahem Rabbi Gamliel lechachomim. Klum yesh adam sheyodeh lesakin birkas haminim. Is there somebody who knows how to make and institute and formulate an additional bracha keneged the minim? Omad Shmuel HaKaton v'tikno. Shmuel HaKaton got up and he was mesakein the bracha. Leshon acheres shchocha. The following year, he forgot. As he was the shliach tzibur davening for the tzibur, he began saying the bracha of Elam Al Shinim, and he forgot the wording. V'hishkif b'shtayim v'sholosh shos. And he was thinking about it, trying to remember the wording for 2 or 3 hours. And it wasn't a problem of kedei ligmar es kula, that he should repeat the Shmoneh Esrei from the beginning, because he was trying to remember that in the middle of that bracha. And therefore, was in the middle of Shmona Esrei, being oisek in the Shmona Esrei. V'lo ha'eluhu, and it says they didn't remove him from as being the shliach tzibur, the chazan. Amai asked the Gemara, lo ha'eluhu, why didn't they remove him from being the chazan? V'ha'amar Rav Yehuda Marav, to b'kol ha'brachos kulon, ein ma'alin oisoi. A person who makes a mistake in all of the brachos, they are not ma'alin oisoi. Again, the word ma'alin over here means they don't remove him. Why is it called ma'alin? Because when they had a shliach tzibur, he would be yorad lifnei ateva. He would go down, and that way he would go down to a place that was a bit lower than everybody else. Like it says, mima makim krosicha Hashem. So the shliach tzibur was davening at a lower place. So here it says, ein ma'alin oisoi. You wouldn't remove him. You wouldn't take him up from that position as shliach tzibur. So the Gemara is asking over here, why didn't they remove Shmuel HaKaton from his position as shliach tzibur? It says over here, if a person makes a mistake, then they don't remove him. But birkas haminim ma'alin oisoi. They would remove somebody who makes a mistake in the birkas haminim. Chayshin shema minhu, because they are suspect that the person who's a shliach tzibur is indeed a min, and therefore they would remove him immediately from being his position of shliach tzibur. Says the Gemara, answers Shiny Shmuel HaKaton, Diu Tikna. The Gemara says he's different because he was the one who was mesakein the tefillah in the first place, and therefore he's not a min. Ask the Gemara, V'neichush dilma hoder beba. Maybe Chalila he turned bad, he went sour and became a min. Omar Abaye Gemiri Tova Loihave Bisha. I have a Mesorah, says Abaye, that somebody who is good, he doesn't turn sour, he doesn't become bad. V'lo asked the Gemara of Haksiv, it says in the Pasuk, Uveshuv Tzadik Mitzid Kosoi V'osa Ovil. That means that the Tzadik, even he who was a Tzadik, he turns away from his Tzidkus and he becomes a Rasha through his Ovil. Says the Gemara, no, Hahu Rasha Mikara. That was somebody who was initially a Rasha, then became a Tzaddik, then goes back to being a Rasha. About Tzaddik Mikara loy. But somebody who was always a Tzaddik doesn't become a Rasha at the end. Ask the Gemara, loy. V'hotnan, it says in the Mishnah, Al tamin be'atzmecha ad yoim moischa. Don't believe in yourself until the day of your death. Shahare Yochanan Kohen Gadol Shimesh Bekahuna Gedoyla Shmoinim Shona Ulvasof Nase Tzedoiki. Shimon Yochanan HaKohen Gadol was a Kohen Gadol for 80 years. and at the end he became sour, and he became a tzeduki. Omar Abaye, hu Yonai, hu Yochanan. He was originally the person who was called Yonai, who killed the Chachamim. And therefore he's called Yochanan also. But it's the person who was originally a Rasha, Yonai, who then became the Kohen Gadol, and then subsequently went sour again and became a Tzeduki. Rav Amar Yonai lechu v'Yochanan lechu. They're two different people. Yonai Rasha mi'ikaroi, v'Yochanan Tzadik mi'ikaroi. Yonai was a Rasha, but Yochanan was a Tzadik even from the beginning. So Gemara asks, Hanicha leBaye. It's very fine, it's very good according to Abaye, because Abaye is saying that this person was always a Rasha. So therefore, the fact that he became a tzaddik and then went back to being a Rasha is not a kasha. El Rava kasha, but according to Rava, who says Yochanan was always a tzaddik, so therefore we see a precedent that a tzaddik can become a Rasha. Says the Gemara, Amalach Rava tzaddik mikaro nami dilma hoderbei. Rava argues on Abai, says, Abai, you might have your Masara that somebody who is good doesn't turn bad, but I know that there's also such a thing as somebody who was a tzaddik initially who became bad. Ihochi asked the Gemara, Amai lo asku. Why didn't they remove, therefore, Shmuel HaKotan? After all, it's true he was always a tzaddik, but according to Rava, they should have removed him. Shiny Shmuel HaKotan. The aschil ba, because he began the bracha as shliach tzibur. The Omer Rav Yehuda Marav, V'teimer Rav Yoshua ben Levi, lo yishna ela shelo hischil ba, aval hischil ba goimra. This is talking, when do you remove the shliach tzibur? When he never began the bracha of velam al shinim. But if he began it, obviously he's somebody who's prepared to then go through and even curse himself as a min. The fact that he stopped in the middle is because he became distracted and he forgot the wording. And therefore we don't remove somebody who began that bracha. Now the Gemara turns and says, what about the different tefillos that we say other times of the week or the year? What do they correspond to? We said that the 18 brachos correspond to Havul Hashem B'nei Elim, that there are 18 azkaros in that mizmor. Now the Gemara asks, what about the Shmona Esrei of Shabbos? Hani Sheva de Shabbato Keneged Mi. Those 7 brachos that we say on Shabbos, the first 3 are the same first 3. Those are Shevach LaHashem. The last 3 are the same last 3, that's Hoidah. But the middle is different on Shabbos. We don't have the 13 bakoshois that we have during the week. What is this one bracha in the middle that makes it 7? Why are these 7 brachos? Keneged what? What do they correspond to? Omar Rabbi Chalafta ben Shol keneged Shiva kolos. The 7 brachos that we say on Shabbos, Shmona Esrei, they correspond to the 7 kolos. Shenimar David, Shomar David al Hamayim. That David HaMelech said in the capital, that same capital of Avos Hashem B'nei Elim. It says over there that David HaMelech said, Kol Hashem al Hamayim 7 times. Kolos, 7 kolos. Hani Tisha the Rosh Hashanah keneged mi. The 9 brachos that we say on Rosh Hashanah Musaf, what do they correspond to? Again, we have the same first 3, the same last 3, but in the middle we have Malchios, Zichronos, and Shoiforos. So what do they correspond to? By the way, Malchios also is included in the Birkas Hayom and Kedushas Hayom. But nonetheless, we have 9 brachos all together. What do they correspond to? Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak the Min Kartigan Keneged Tisha Azkaros Sha'omra Chana B'Tfilosa. They correspond to the 9 Azkaros, the Shemos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that Chana mentions in her Tefillah there in Sefer Shmuel. Domar Mar B'Rosh Hashanah Nifgada Sarah Rachel V'Chana. These great women who didn't have children, Sarah, Rachel, and Chana, were Nifgada on Rosh Hashanah. Ask the Gemara, Hani Esrim V'Arba the Ta'anisa Keneged Mi. The 24 brachos that we say on Tainis, special Tainiyos, those 24 brachos, what do they correspond to? Om Rabbi Chelbo Keneged Chov Daled Rananois. Shomer Shlomo B'Shah shehichnis Aaron lebeis kodesh hakadoshim. Shlomo HaMelech said 24 supplications when he wanted to enter the Aron. There was a problem to enter the Aron, the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The walls were dvukim, wasn't able to enter them, and he davened special tefillos in order to then allow the Aron to enter into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Ask the Gemara, Ihochi kol yoyma nami namrinhu. Let us say those 24 brachos throughout the entire year. Why are we only saying then 19? If these are special ways of supplicating before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, let's do that during the week as well. Says the Gemara, Eimas amrinon Shlomo biyomi derachamei. When Shlomo said this, he said it with special rachamim. He needed mevakish rachamim, a special in order to then allow the Aaron to enter the Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim. So it's a unique type of situation. Ananami biyomi derachamei amrilu. Therefore, only when we have a special, unique situation of tiny ois do we add special supplications with a total of 24 brachos. Rabbi Yeshua Omer Me'ein Shmona Esrei. The machlokes in the Mishnah was that Rabbi Gamliel says that we make 18 brachos, Shmona Esrei brachos every day. Rabbi Yeshua argued and said Me'ein Shmona Esrei. And Rabbi Akiva says if a person does not have the Shmona Esrei brachos shogar b'piv, he's not rogil to say them because again they didn't used to have a siddur in front of them, and therefore if he didn't know the words clearly himself to be able to say the 18 brachos in full, then he can say the Me'ein Shmona Esrei. Ask the Gemara, my Me'ein Shmona Esrei. What does it mean that Yeshua said you can say Me'ein Shmona Esrei? What is Me'ein Shmona Esrei? Says the Gemara, Rav Omar Me'ein Kol Bracha U'Bracha. Rav says Me'ein Shmona Esrei means that you say the regular Shmona Esrei in terms of all of the brachos, but you make it an abbreviated version. How do you do that? By making all of the middle brachos shortened by saying the beginning and the end of every bracha. For example, Ata choynein la'odam das, Baruch ato Hashem choynein adas. Hashivenu avinu l'sarasecho, Baruch ato Hashem haroitze b'sishuva, and so on. Shmuel argues, and he says Me'ein Shmona Esrei is different. He says it's a composite of all of the brachos together. In other words, again, you have the first 3 brachos, you have the last 3 brachos, but in the middle there's only one bracha, and that one bracha is a composite of all of the other brachos in that one bracha, as follows. Havinenu Hashem Elokeinu ladas darkecho. Here refers to the first bracha of das. HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring us, bestow upon us to know the das, to know your ways. Umoiles levaven liyirasecho. And this is referring to circumcising our hearts for your yira. This refers to tshuva. Vatislach lonu, and forgive us, referring to the bracha of slach lonu. Liyos geulim, that we should be geulim from our tzoros. This refers to the bracha of Goal Yisrael. V'rachkeinu mechavoseinu, and distance us from our pains, referring to the bracha of refuah. V'dashneinu b'de'ois artzecho, and fatten us up with the grass of your land that is going to be grazing for our flocks. That's referring to Baruch Aleinu. Unifotoseinu me'arba tikabetz, and from our scattered around, bring us close, gather us from all 4 corners. Okay, and that's referring to tikab shofar. V'hatoyim al daitcha yishpetu, and those judges who make a mistake, they go astray from your knowledge, may they shofet, may they rule and judge properly. Keneged the bracha of Hashiva Shoftenu. Val HaRishoyim Tonif Yodecha. Against the Rishoyim you shall raise your hand. Again, this is referring to the bracha of Alam Hashinim. V'yismechu tzadikim. May the tzadikim rejoice. Keneged the bracha of Allah tzadikim. Bevinyan irecho v'tikun heichalecho. This is keneged the bracha of Yerushalayim irecho. Utzmichas keren leDavid avdecho. This corresponds to the bracha of Es Tzemach David Avdecha. Terem nikra atasane. Before it's called out to you, already answer. Baruch atah Hashem shomei tefillah. Of course, corresponding to shomei tefillah, says all one composite bracha that ends Baruch atah Hashem shomei tefillah. Then we continue with the last three brachos. Says the Gemara, Layit ala Abaye amad matzli havinenu. Abaye cursed the one who relied on saying this bracha of havinenu, because he's skipping over all of the brachas to say one long composite bracha. And therefore, if he has the ability to say all of the brachos, he must say all of the brachos. If he took advantage, however, and he said havinenu in a place where he didn't need to, it wasn't a shas dachuk, then he cursed such a person. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, Kol hashana kula mispalel adam havinenu, chutz mi motzoi Shabbos, motzoi yomim tovim. Mibnei shetzarech loymar havdala b'choinen hadas. He says all year long, if a person needs to say havinenu, he can do so with the exception during the days of Geshamim and during the Motzei Shabbos and Motzei Yomim Tovim. Ask the Gemara, Maskif l'Rabba bar Shmuel, v'nemer bracha revia b'fnei atzmo. What's the problem? In regards to Havdalah, why doesn't he then just say an additional bracha? Milotna, don't we already learn in the Mishnah, Rabbi Akiva oimra bracha revis b'fnei atzmo? Rabbi Elazar omer b'hodo. We find that Rabbi Akiva, he instituted a fourth bracha, and therefore an additional bracha when it comes to Havdalah, Motzei Shabbos, and Motzei Yom Tiv. Says the Gemara, no, Atu kol hashana kula mi'avdin Rabbi Akiva. The entire year we don't follow the opinion of Rabbi Akiva to add an additional bracha. We put it into the bracha of das, but not in a special separate bracha. The hashtanami navi kol hashana kula. Now also we will then make an additional bracha. No, if we don't do it during the rest of the year, we're not going to then add these words in the havinenu either. Says the Gemara, my time of Rabbi Akiva. Why don't we do like Rabbi Akiva? Because tamne sari takun. The Shasrei lo takun. Because we instituted 18 brachos. We didn't institute 19 brachos. And that's why we don't add an additional bracha in the Shmona Esrei on Motzei Shabbos for Havdalah. Gemara says, Hachanami, Sheva takun, Timni lo takun. 7 brachos were mesakein on the Shabbos. On the Havinenu. But 8 brachos not. And therefore we're not going to add an additional bracha to institute on top of the bracha of Havinenu to make it an entire 18 brach, 8 brachos. Ask the Gemara, Maskif lo marzutra v'nichlala michlal Havinenu Hashem Elokeinu hamavdil ben kodesh lechol. Ask the Gemara, why don't we just add a small, brief caption, a few words of Havdalah in the Havinenu itself? And we don't have to add an additional bracha, just those words included in the Havinenu. Says the Gemara, Kasha. The Gemara leaves it as a difficulty. Says the Gemara now, Omar Rabbi Bibi bar Abaye, Kol hashana kula mispala adam Havinenu, chutz miyamos hageshamim, mimnei shetzarech lo imer she'ela bebirkas hashanim. All year long, if a person needs to, he can say the bracha of Havinenu, a shortened Shmona Esrei like we just spoke about, unless he says it's during the days when he has to then mention the she'ela v'sein tal umata livrocha during the winter, during the rain season. Maski flo marzutra v'nichlala michlal v'dashnenu b'nois artzecha v'sein tal umatar. Why don't we just add those words of v'sein tal umatar in the addition that we put in the Havinenu in the area of Borech Aleinu in regards to that, connected that bracha? Says the Gemara, Osi la'atrudi. It'll cause him to make a mistake. Ask the Gemara, Ihochi, Havdalah b'chonin hadas nami osi l'itrudi. Then why don't we say the same thing by adding those words in the Havinenu for Havdalah? And yet we left it as a kasha right before. We didn't ask it as saying that it's not possible because a person will make a mistake. So why over here are we saying when it comes to adding the same talumota livrocha, we're concerned a person will make a mistake, whereas in the Havdalah we weren't concerned? Says the Gemara, no, because Amri Hasam over there, Kiven da Asya betchila selusa lo mitrid. Because there's a difference. When a person is going to begin the Havinenu with these additional words of Havdalah, then a person won't make a mistake. But if he's going to add it in the middle of the Havinenu, that will cause him to make a mistake. Ask the Gemara still, Maskifler of Ashi, V'nemra b'shomea tefillah. Why don't we just add it in the words of Shomea tefillah? Meaning at the end of the Havinenu. And then we won't cause a person to make a mistake and be mitrid. Answers the Gemara, the Amram Tanchum Ravasi, Tov lo hiske gvur yishamim. We're actually still in the Kasha. The Gemara is asking, right? If a person forgets, he makes a mistake, and he doesn't mention Gvuras Kishamim b'tchias hamesim, that means Mashiv Aruch min geshem, Machzirin oisoi she'elo Machzirin oisoi. Then make him go back to the beginning of the Shemona Esrei if he doesn't say Mashiv Aruch min geshem. She'ela beberkas hashonim. If he doesn't say v'sein talamoti livrocha, ein machzivin osoi. Mnei sheyachol la'oim b'shomei tefillah. Because he can say it in shomei tefillah. V'havdalah b'chonei adas, ein machzivin osoi mnei sheyachol la'oim ala kois. And similarly, when it comes to not making havdalah in the Shemona Esrei, we also don't want machzir him to go to the beginning of the Shemona Esrei because he can say it on the kois. So we're left with the question: why can't he say the words of saying talamoti livrocha at the end of the Havinenu by the words of Shomea Tefillah? Answers the Gemara, Ta'a Shaini. When a person makes a mistake, then he can machnis the words of saying Talamota livrocha in the Shomea Tefillah. But lechatchila, to put in the words v'sein talamota livrocha in Shomea Tefillah, it's not the place to do so. Says the Gemara, Gufa, coming back to the previous statement that we made. Omer Rav Tanchum, Omer Rav Asi, Tov lo hiske gevuras kishamim b'tchias hamesim machzirin oisoi. If a person did not say Mashiv haruach mira geshem in the winter time, and parenthetically he didn't say Morid hatal either, then we machzir, we make sure that he goes back to the beginning of the Shemona Esrei. However, she'elo beberkas hashonim, in the request of Birkas Hashonim v'sein talamota livrocha, ein machzir nosoi. We don't make him go back because we say they can make that addition in the bracha of Shomea Tefillah. V'havdalah b'chonei adas ein machzir nosoi mipnei sheyochel la'oimrei ala kois. And also, similarly, we don't make him go back if he forgot to add havdalah in the Shemona Esrei Motzei Shabbos or Motzei Yom Tif, because he can make havdalah on the kois. Meisvei asked the Gemara, Tov lo hizker gevuras geshamim b'tchias hamesim. A person made a mistake and he didn't mention Mashiv haruach min geshem as machzirin oisoi. She'ela berkas hashonim machzirin oisoi. If he didn't say She'ela, saying talamota livrocha, we will also make him go back. V'havdalah b'chonei adas ein machzirin oisoi mnei sheyochel la'amar kois. So here we see from this statement that if he does not make v'sein talamota livrocha, then we are machzir here. Whereas before we said, if he doesn't say v'sein talamota livrocha, we are not machzir him. Answers the Gemara, lo kashya, ha b'yachid ha b'tzibur. The time that we said that he has to be machzir, have to be choizer, that's because he's davening by yichidus, by himself. That which we said he doesn't have to then be choizer is when he's davening with the tzibur. Ask the Gemara, b'tzibur my time alone. What's the difference? Why, when he's davening with the tzibur, will you not have to go back and then say the Shemona Esrei again if he missed v'sein talamota livrocha? Answers the Gemara, mishum deshama mishaliach tzibur, because he can hear it from the shliach tzibur. Ihochi asked the Gemara, Hai mipnei sheyachal la'oimra b'shomei tefillah mipnei shomea shaliach tzibur miboilei. Then he should say it's because, not because he can say it in the Shomea Tefillah bracha, but rather because he can hear it from the Shliach Tzibur. If that's the reason, when he's in the Tzibur, he can then hear from the Shliach Tzibur. That's what it should say. Answers the Gemara, Eli'idi ve'idi b'yachid. Really, we're both talking about, in both statements, b'yachid. Both times he davened by himself. So why in one case we say he does not have to be choizer, and in the second case we said that he does have to be choizer? Why not? What's the difference? In both cases, he's davening by himself. The Gemara says, lo kasha. It's not difficult. Hi de'itkar koidem shomei tefillah. Ha de'itkar baser shomei tefillah. The difference is that when he remembered before shomei tefillah, so then he can then add the saint Tal Umat Livrocha in the bracha shomei tefillah. Then he doesn't have to be choizer. But if he forgot to mention the saint Tal Umat Livrocha in the bracha of shomei tefillah, only afterwards he remembers, then he is choizer.